On a trip I made to Cornwall many years ago, I was influenced by the Newlyn School of Art, in particular by a man called Alfred Wallace. He was an irascible sort of chap who was extremely singular in all that he did. And what he did was to describe things in a completely naive fashion, but absolutely from the heart, which was kind of the underpinning of the Newlyn School of Art. The unpretentious toil of the Newlyn fishermen and their environment was just described so perfectly in the work of people like Walter Langley. And he did a painting that influenced me enormously. You can look it up. It's about a letter when a fisherman dies. It's most awfully impressive stuff. And then there's Percy Craft doing pictures of people tucking pilchards, which was the old form of almost trawling, in that they used to pull nets in, but pull them into small boats and empty them by hand into the small boats. You can imagine the arduous toil of it. When down there, I got more into the Newlyn School of Art and all that was going on, and the modern representation of it. I was most impressed also by the Exchange Gallery, which is kind of dedicated to the Newlyn School of Art, despite the fact that it's in Penzance. And there was a building there that was the Exchange, the old telephone exchange, and it wasn't very beautiful, as you can imagine. I'm built in the 50s, 60s. I can't remember exactly when it was built, but it was pretty ugly. And somebody had the good sense and the foresight to employ a firm of architects from up in Glasgow called Malmo, and they designed something that really spoke of the sea and the straightforward honesty of line and form, the sort of thing that very much appealed to the Newlyn artists. And so the Newlyn Gallery is, if you look at it, it has the serpentine swirl of a disturbed sea, but the linear lines that one comes across on horizons and in the sky. So, let me introduce you to the Newlyn collection. It's inspired by the magic of a seaside town in Cornwall. Its inspiration lay both in the place and, as I said, in the honesty of its depiction of the artists. That inspired me. The simplicity, the innovation, the linear sophistication. I just absorbed the detail of the arts and crafts movement, which, after all, is where Malmo came from, the architectural firm that did the Exchange Gallery. So when I actually got down to designing the style of furniture, I found that most of my hard work had already been done through just the inspiration that I gained and the insights that I gained through the research that had taken place over the years. And it led me naturally to choosing very straightforward materials. I wanted it to be in walnut, but I wanted the walnut to not be over-selected. I wanted it still to represent the trees that it came from. So you get the streaks and the lines and the coloration between different sections of the tree. Specifically, I chose those to form the boarding that went to make it. And I accentuated it with flash lines, shadow lines, whichever you call them, but those lines, those silver lines that I put across it, rather like the striations that come down through the sun in clouds onto the open seas. Then, to increase the simplicity, or to reflect, to add to the simplicity, the handles that I put on it, I felt shouldn't be extraneous in any way. They should be pared back as far as possible, which is very much in line with the arts and crafts philosophy, that detailing should come from within rather than be imposed from outside. So that naturally led me to coming up with a new sort of handle, one that is actually machined into the wood, that takes nothing from the plain simplicity of it. What Newlyn and the Newlyn Art School also represented was a type of freedom, a freedom of expression. They painted outdoors, which was quite a modern innovation for their times, and I've tried to allow for that freedom of expression in the fact that one can move and change the materials that one uses. For instance, it doesn't have to be walnut. One can put it in any other timber one might fancy, and you can express yourself still further by having painted elements, or in fact the whole thing painted. I think in the photographs that you're seeing, you notice the island unit is very simple, just painted, rather like the hull of a boat would be. So, endeavouring to maintain that spirit of freedom, I tried to get something that was perfectly attuned to modern living, something that's deceptively simple, something that creates absolute style. To do that, to keep that simplicity and that freedom, I produced a style that has no frame. For me, no frame was important because it keeps the simplicity and keeps the freedom in the style, keeps the linear feel of it all.